Thanks so much for tuning in. This will be the July 2026 meeting updates. We'll start with there were two items on the council briefing from July 13th that I want to address, and then everything else from that meeting I'll address on the regular council meeting. The first one is we heard from our traffic engineers. If you may recall, we budgeted some money in this year's budget to look at a couple of intersections. Gloria Switch, Veterans, and Michio primarily. I really believe that the traffic at those intersections is something that can be worked on, and the council agrees, and as does the mayor. And these are DOTD roads, which I've talked about extensively in the past. The problem is that although we know, each of us listening to this video, and myself and the council and mayor, that something needs to be done there, and we all have very similar ideas. Without having a traffic engineer with data go to DOTD with us or on our behalf, it's very, very difficult to get them to make the necessary changes. So they are working on it. There are some ideas. I think we all can agree the roundabout near Super One and that intersection is probably the most imperative. But then you look at the Gloria Switch near I-49 interchanges there. There are two or three lights there. Then one crossover doesn't have a light, and that area continues to grow. We've had Tractor Supply come there recently, and I think growth will continue in that corridor. And so they're looking at the data so that when we go to DOTD with real solutions, we can hopefully get some movement there. So I think we got some good updates. Nothing set in stone. They're still performing some of those studies and traffic counts, and they have to gather traffic crash data and all of these different parts to make firm recommendations. But we recognize the problem, and it is high on the priority list. Next is the drainage master plan. This is one of the pieces that came out of the comprehensive master plan that we did. And it's in the early phases. We have some funding secured for that and budgeted for it. So Councilmember Alfred Senegal is spearheading this drainage master plan, and we had some documentation from Finstamaker, who's our engineering firm. To me, it makes sense to use them here because they have so much data already. I think we spent a lot more time, energy, and money trying to go somewhere else and getting that data transferred. They have the expertise, and so we'll partner with them, and there'll be some community engagement. They are compiling a stakeholder committee to try to figure out where does our priorities need to be. Is it in retention detention ponds? Is it in routine maintenance of ditches? Is it in culverts? Is it in more regional type projects, or whatever we think those, or the community thinks that those priorities are? That is where that committee will take it, and then to me, one of the big parts of that will be determining actual projects that can be implemented, and so more information will come, but that should be starting soon. We then will go to the regular council meeting, which was on July 20th, and everything else from the council briefing was done there. It's always great to have guests and to recognize people. First person we heard from was Lafayette Parish Assessor Mr. Justin Centeni, and so he will have. They're kind of going on a road show, rather than trying to get concerns or issues brought to his office. They're going to go out on the road. They're going to be in Carencro 2 half days, August 5th from 8 to 11:30 at City Hall in the council chamber, and then again August 12th from 1 to 4:30. If you have a concern or a question about your assessment, homestead exemption, freezing property values, any of these types of things, please do go there, and there'll be um, staff members there who can go through those things, help you with paperwork, take down concerns, whatever they may be. Another note is, we've had a 3% increase in property value across the city of Carencro. That is putting money into your pocket for every property owner who may be listening. That is really great news, and that's hard work for many years and really decades to get us to this point. There's of course many positives and many negatives about Carecrow growing. As a lifelong resident, I understand the concerns and the difficulties and the people who say we've grown too much or we've grown too fast. Um, but there are many positives. The city services that have been able to be brought, from Parks and Recs to infrastructure to all aspects, improved police and fire protection, are positives of that. Those things take dollars, and so that growth has helped with that. But one of the things with that growth is property values begin to increase, and we saw a 3% increase last year. And so that's great news for every property owner in Carencro. We then recognize some great 4-H members. My kids are in 4-H, and they really enjoy it, and I think it's an excellent program. And quarterly, we recognize members who've done something special, and we were able to do that. We then recognize Miss Stacia McZeal, Dr. McZeal, who's running for Lafayette Parish School Board. She discussed some things on her platform, and I always appreciate when candidates come to the council and introduce themselves and kind of tell the public what they have going on. So there's at least two people that I'm aware of that are running for school board, and Mr. Ted Davison and Dr. McZeal, and so I'll be interested to learn more about what their platforms are and how they'll help our community. Had a couple of proclamations. First was honoring the Camp Adder J Counselors in Training. This is a new program for young adults who are there helping the program. So that was great. We also honored Miss Marley Ozine. She was a 2026 Louisiana Young Hero. This is a great recognition for her and for our community. And then we recognize with a proclamation Ms. Jelani Broussard. She's a Carencro native who has earned a position on the Chicago Lovables dance team for the Chicago Bulls. So really great that she'll be representing not only Carencro but Louisiana in Chicago moving forward. So congratulations to all these people. We did get some updates from some consultants. I won't go through everything in detail. I do want to comment, I'm recording this now late in the evening on the 28th of July, but Carencro football team went out and bagged some sandbags last week, and I really appreciate the community effort. I've seen them in many community events. They're always very professional, very well coached, and they are great. They're great members of our community and are always willing to go out and help. So I really appreciate that. We heard from the planning department. Just to kind of remind you, we are working with a company called Retail Strategies. It's a national company who goes out and looks for um, businesses and franchises and ways or people who may be willing to come and invest in Carencro and bring a business here. We have Facebook. The council and the mayor and the planning departments. And so we see what you say. We may not be responding, but we see when you say, boy, we really want whatever business it may be. And we understand that. And again, this is sort of part of the master plan as well, strategic growth. And so just know that they are working behind the scenes. And so we get occasional updates from them, but they are working closely with the mayor and the planning department to find out what parcels of land would be prime for development, what may be a good fit there, whatever it may be, food, retail, some other commercial, whatever it is. They are partnering with us to find those things. So we hear you. We are working on those things. It's a company that's done well for other communities in our area, and so we're hopeful to continue the progress. But Miss Tammy Robertson did comment. Walk-ons is now open. KK's Cafe is coming to a location on the Thruway, which my understanding is it's wildly successful in, I believe, Youngsville. We've got some gas stations opening. We did get an update that the gas station on the corner of University and Arsenault changed ownerships, but they were very close to opening. So I expect them to be open any day now. But lots of great things happening in the planning department. Businesses are coming. People are excited about them, and more to come there. We did hear from Ms. Candace Tompkins. They're moving forward with the online code enforcement and using iWorks, which is a software that the city uses for public works and other things. And so very, very soon, the community will be able to go on to a website or to a web portal and submit those code enforcement concerns, whether it's long grass, whatever it may be. In the meantime, you can still contact City Hall or any council member. We can assist you with those. But I think that'll be easy and nice and easier to track once we have that up and running. We did hear from Mr. Andy Sellers with Fence2Maker. We got some basic updates there. Mr. Lynn Guidry gave two basic updates in terms of the work that he's been doing. So the first is the fountains at the police station. This is still an issue for those of you who've listened to this video for a while. The fountains are not operable currently. Many problems. One of them is that the water level had dropped in the ponds, which likely damaged the fountains and caused them to suck up some mud. The fountains probably aren't as deep as those particular fountains needed to be. And so we're looking at a couple of options, repairing those fountains, getting a local company out of the Youngsville area to put new, smaller fountains in, new fountains out of the original company from Florida. And so those things are still up in the air. I don't have a firm feeling at this point what's the best way to go, but I know that Chief David Anderson and Mr. Lynn Guidry are working hard and gathering all the data to make some decisions there. We then also heard about the City Hall renovations. This is very real. This is happening in the next few weeks. It'll be starting. It'll take about a year. So hopefully next summer or early fall, those renovations should be done. Primary thing that I think the public will notice is parking is going to change a bit during construction. So the backside of the current city hall is going to be closed. Some of that concrete needs to be torn out and gas lines moved. And so the hope is the new buildings that will attach to the current city hall will be built first and with minimal disruption inside the current city hall. And then at some point in the future, they will move the current city hall operations into the new building, the new portion. It'll be one building, but the new portion, while they make some renovations inside the current building, and then it can all open up together. I've seen the plans multiple times. I'm really excited about it. Again, this is some state money that we have been able to secure, and so I've talked for a long time about running out of space at City Hall, and this will be a really great thing. Next thing is the new website. So Brand Russo has been working on our new website for quite some time. They gave a presentation of the site. I think that the citizens will have some new functionality to it. I think it will be user-friendly and certainly much more updated. So that should be in the next several weeks. That new website should be up. It'll be on the same website. It'll have the same overall feel, but it'll have some nice upgrades and refreshments. So then we moved to resolutions. The first resolution was to enter into contract with Fence2Maker for the drainage master plan. I've basically talked about that during the council briefing portion. This is the formal piece that allows us to work with Fence2Maker on this master plan. The next resolution was in regard to the Kiwanis Club. The Kiwanis Club presented to us at the council briefing, and I thought it was an excellent presentation. We've got a lot of really good community groups and civic organizations, and Kiwanis is certainly up there with the best of them. For those of you who are not aware, this is kind of an aside, they're having their big annual fundraiser soon. It's always a great event held at the community center. Check out their social media sites. Consider buying a ticket. Consider supporting them. They give back an amazing amount to our community. One of their big primary things that they do is they're in the schools with jackets and clothes and products for the students that they may need to be successful. But one of the things that they're looking at doing is there's a few projects that they're looking at some of the city parks. They're beautification projects. Some of them are sort of a walking, reading loop around Pelican Park. They had a much more eloquent title for it, and it's slipping my mind at this moment. But it'll be some signs that'll be family friendly, that families and children can walk and read. There'll be some history or some kind of informative things and some stories that'll change over time. There's some projects that they're looking at toward the back where the current kind of the big oak trees are near the MacRD stage, and some other really great projects that are a little longer term. But they're using their dollars. But again, this is a nonprofit organization who wants to partner with us, and so we had to pass a resolution. Um, and and to ensure that there's a cooperative endeavor agreement. And so that is ongoing, but this essentially gave the mayor the authority to negotiate the cooperative endeavor agreement to get it done. In my mind, it's paperwork because Kiwanis has a great plan that we all agree to. We just need to make sure that the legal aspect is straightened out so that there's no problem with that going forward. But this will be, other than the time and the space for the city, this will be done at the expense of Kiwanis Club. And so again, please support them. They're doing great things for our community. Then we had two ordinances for final adoption. This took by far the most time of the meeting. In fact, we had started a hearing an hour before the meeting, a public hearing to discuss these. It took the full hour and then more into the regular meeting. We've talked about these quite a bit. It's been brought to the council multiple times. We've made edits. I've made suggestions multiple times. Council members, mayors, citizens, multiple people have made suggestions. And so it was up for final adoption. The first one is in reference to chapters 22 and chapters 26 of our Code of Ordinances. Chapter 22 deals with the environment, and then chapter 26 is fire prevention. My overall opinion of this one is that it was a clarification to ensure that the land clearing that happens in the environmental part of chapter 22 was clear that there could be no burning. Some of the changes that were made, there was some concern from the public that it lowered the authority of the fire chief and took some of that into the city hall. And so that was clarified a bit, but there's no real change into what you can and cannot burn. And the short version is you can't burn anything. I mean, you can have a barbecue, you can have a small, fire pit or that kind of thing at your house for a small social gathering, but you can't burn trees or leaves in any circumstance, whether there's a burn ban or not. And so there's no change to that. This was sort of a cleanup ordinance, in my opinion. As you may recall, this was really the first big thing that came out of the comprehensive master plan, which was the land development code update. And it's going to take us a year or two to get it all done. But these two were the first steps. They were smaller cleanup type. They were at least intended to be smaller cleanup type resolution amendments so that Desire who is doing the work in the city of Carecrow, can figure out our processes and make sure that we're all on the same page on how this will go. There was a lot of discussion from the fire chief, the council. Mr. Don Chauvin was there and had some questions. Ultimately, this one did pass unanimously. I think there were perhaps some small technical issues that were maybe could have been cleaned up some more, but I don't think that they changed anything substantial within the ordinance. And so I did vote to pass this one. That takes us to the second one, which is Chapter 70, and it's about occupational licenses. And this one's has had a lot of change from when we first got it until now, and I think we're in a better place. I'll start off by telling you I did vote against passing this. I was the only vote against, and the truth is that I believe it is a good ordinance. But during the course of the discussion, there were a lot of concerns brought up that that I thought we maybe should take another look at. There was not enough that I'm worried or I think that there's a major problem, but there were a lot of minor issues. Again, some of them were sort of technical in nature about how we set things or where things were. I don't think there's anything majorly substantive that's wrong with it. that worries me or makes me think we need to go back immediately and look at it again. Um, some of the big things that we had brought up in the past that were a concern is, are we going to require people to have two occupational licenses? Meaning, if you perform work in Scott and in Carencro, do you need two? The answer is no. What about Amazon? Are they going to have to pay for an occupational license for their gross sales of all of Amazon? No. It's only based off of here. And so I do think we cleaned it up a lot. I do think it's in a good shape. It tries to level the playing field, and it ensures that the people that should be paying occupational license tax are paying that. Um, and, there's, again, I don't think we have a major change here. In other words, we're not increasing the tax or the rates. Those are set by the state. And that was one of the big things that this ordinance amendment intended to do, was to clarify that the state law is pretty clear on, um, who should be taxed, who is exempt, how much do they pay, and we are going to follow that guidance, which legally we have to. So again, I voted against, not because I don't think it's a good ordinance, not because I think there's a major problem, but I thought maybe there should have been one more meeting of review. I think Desire Line had a good point that they are out of, I believe, the Covington area or North Shore area, and every time we ask them to go back, it's costing the citizens money. They have to get their staff together, relook at things, come back. There's costs associated. And I don't think that's a good reason to rush and pass an ordinance, but I do think it's something that we have to consider because it is a cost. And their opinion was that the discussions and the concerns raised, a few amendments were made at the meeting to the ordinance, um, but their opinion was the rest of them were minor kind of technical things that doesn't change how the ordinance is going to be done. And so it ultimately passed 4-1. I think that's fine. This is not one that I felt super strong on. And going into the meeting, I had looked at this extensively. I'd read it multiple times. I've had multiple back and forth discussions with Desire Line, and I felt good about it. But some of the concerns raised by Mr. Don Chauvin caused me to take a step back. So that's where we're at for that. Then we had one public hearing. There was a resident on Kentwood Drive who wanted to put culverts across the front of his yard and close the ditch. We've kind of addressed this issue multiple times in my time on the council. Um, the short version is, this is usually not a good idea. It's almost never a good idea. My ditches are open in the front of my house, and I would love nothing more than to cover them. Of course, it's difficult to cut the grass. It can be unsightly when the weeds grow. It can hold water when there's mosquitoes and snakes, and there's all these things with open ditches that I understand. And as you look at new neighborhoods and new development, you'll see most of those things are closed ditches for those reasons. But as part of their drainage analysis, they account for that water in that closed ditch somewhere else in a retention or a detention pond. The older developments that have that have open drainage, meaning no culverts, they were designed that way. Those, as my understanding from the engineers, is that those ditches were intended to have some overflow. And so if you imagine a street that has 50 houses on it, and we get a major rain, that water may flow out of the ditch a few feet, maybe onto the road and into the to the resident's yard. It's designed to do that. That water is designed to expand slightly or however much outside of the ditch to hold it there until the ditch can drain. As citizens begin closing in their ditches, now you have a closed space, a certain amount of volume of water that can be held. And the remainder of the open ditches in that neighborhood are going to have to account for that water during a big rain. So whereas if you closed half of the ditches, however much that water was going to expand out of the ditch during a major rain, it's going to be twice as much in the other people's yard. The water still has to go somewhere. If we closed all the ditches, then that could back up, wherever the beginning of the drainage is, and it will take longer and longer for that to drain over time. So it's a drainage issue. Um, I understand this resident's concern and want to put culverts in. But once you do that, once you start allowing people to cover the ditches when they were designed to be open ditches, you really open Pandora's box and cause problems. So ultimately, this was not approved. It was nobody voted for it, and so that's kind of where that left us. So that's where I'll leave it for this meeting. I think we have a lot of moving parts, a lot of infrastructure projects. The sewer plant is going great. City Hall renovations are coming up. The last phase or the next phase of the water main replacement is happening. The gas project's happening. We are looking at continued development with KK's Cafe and walk-ons. So remember to shop local, eat at those restaurants, fill your gas in town before you go. Do all those things so that we can continue to reinvest those dollars. If you're going to spend them anyway, why not spend them in your community where we can reinvest them into services that benefit you? I'm available should you need anything, and thanks for listening.